Hi BookTube, my name is Juan, I am just one reader, and I am coming to you with another batch of book reviews. These are books numbers 15 through 19 that I have read so far in 2021. These are not super in-depth reviews. Basically, the books that I feel are more worthy of a careful analysis or discussion, or the books that just make me want to talk about something with more substance, I will make another separate video for those books. So these are just some kind of recent reads and some of my general impressions, and I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you can share if you have similar experiences with these books, or if you recommend some other books. I want to hear about all of your thoughts in the comments. So book number 15 that I read in 2021 was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I have talked quite comprehensively about this book on my channel lately. I did actually make another review for this book, specifically talking about mental illness and some psychotherapeutic approaches to mental health and mental illness. I gave this book 3 stars. I thought it was remarkable in some respects in terms of how it represents mental illness in a way that is not sugar-coaty or romanticized, but it's a John Green book. So you know that in a John Green book, you are going to see a lot of quirky, exaggerated features, both in character, dialogue, story. Even though there's really no plot in this book, there are many things in here that are quite exaggerated and feel almost otherworldly. But I do like the idea of this book, maybe even more than the actual book itself. But I think this is a book that many young readers would be benefited from reading this. So I gave it 3 stars, and then I reread Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I made a video, sort of an analysis, talking about Rebecca, the book and the movie by Alfred Hitchcock. And you can find this video on the channel Old Blues Chapter and Verse. I'm gonna leave a link down below. It's a very long, casual, spontaneous conversation that I had with Jason from that channel, and we basically tore this book apart, both in a good way and in not such a good way. But it was definitely interesting, and rereading this book as a preparation for that video that I did with Jason was really interesting. I gave this book 4 stars. It's Rebecca. I like it. I don't love it. I love it. I don't love it. You know what I mean? I think Daphne du Maurier was beginning to craft her craft in Rebecca, and she improved greatly over the years in her following works. But it's a classic, you have to read it. Then I read a very small nonfiction text, Yo soy el monstruo que os habla. This is in Spanish, but you can also get it in the original French, I believe. Je suis un monstre, I'm completely butchering this. Je suis un monstre qui vous parle. Rapport pour une académie de psychanalystes. I think that's how you pronounce that. So this is basically, I am the monster addressing you. And this is by Paul Preciado. He's a transgender man, and basically what he's doing here is he's addressing the community of French psychoanalysts. They are a very specific branch of psychoanalysts following the teachings of Jacques Lacan and some of Freud's teachings. And basically what he's doing is addressing these French psychoanalysts and trying to make them see, or trying to make them at least wonder critically, if psychoanalysis has been heteronormed, and how much of what psychoanalytical theory has thought and has come up with, how much of that is biased by gender. I think this is interesting. I think in many ways he's right. I think in many ways he's wrong. It was a very interesting text to read critically and to think about in a seminar setting, because I am taking a seminar and we are discussing new contemporary ideas in psychoanalysis. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, I would recommend it. Then, okay, this is the big one. The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. I gave this book 5 stars. I mean, I will make a separate book review or a separate video talking about the Life Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb when I am done with it. But this was book 2 in that trilogy. Look at this book. It's so beautiful. It's one of these really lovely, textured paperbacks. It's a British edition of The Mad Ship. It has sort of metallic things in here, and it's just beautiful and elegant and understated at the same time. But anyway, that's the exterior part of the book. What's inside is even better. This book was the second part of the Life Ship Traders by Robin Hobb, which is her second trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings. This book was very long, 906 pages, but I could have read even more. What can I say about this book that hasn't been said? Actually, I think it was yesterday that Jimmy from the Fantasy Network, he made a book review. So if I can remember to do so, I will link his video down below. I think he did a really fabulous analysis. No spoilers, a completely spoiler-free analysis of this book, and he also has one for the Ship of Magic, a Ship of Magic video. So I think if you want a really coherent, clever, smart, accurate review, you can go and check his review out of these books. But I can just say that these books are magical. Everything that I wanted the Farseer trilogy to be and was frustrated because it wasn't, this completely compensates for that. These books are magical. They are incredibly well written, incredibly well crafted in every possible way. I love the characters, how they are always shifting and moving, and you, as a reader, feel very differently about them. Especially in this book, some of the characters from the previous book that I really, really hated now became my favorite characters, especially the character of Malta. Can you hear my nose? How constipated my nose becomes when I say the word Malta. Well, Malta now became my favorite character, at least in this book. I really loved her character arc, but really all of the characters are interesting, even the ones that you don't like. You feel for them, you feel empathy for them, and the ones that you do like are not like idealized characters. There's layers to each and every one of them. The story got really interesting, and I do have some problems with the book, even though I gave it 5 stars and I thought it was brilliant. There are some pacing issues, not issues, but there were some moments in the book where I really felt like I was sort of trudging along, like it was becoming a little bit slow for my personal taste. But then the final 300 pages were a roller coaster, and I could not put the book down. This book has some of the best chapters that I've read in any Robin Hobb book so far. There are some scenes that are forever ingrained in my mind. They are so shocking and so good. And yeah, the ending is just, I am really hungry for the third book. But I need to sort of read some other things before I do so, just to really cleanse my palate, if you know what I mean. So I gave this book 5 stars. It is absolutely wonderful. And then finally, book Number 19 of my reading year so far was The Velvet Rage by Alan Downs. So, The Velvet Rage, overcoming the pain of growing up gay in a straight man's world. That it's a very popular book. I actually hadn't really heard about it. One of my friends recommended it to me. He said that this was like really, that it really opened his mind and really comforted him and made him see everything in a different light. So I was drawn to the topic and to my friend's reaction. So I thought this book would be something else, something that it wasn't. In the end, I gave it 2 stars. I don't think it's very good. I feel bad saying that because I know this book is something of a classic and it's revered and beloved by many people who have been touched and helped by this book and by its message. But I thought it was a little meh. I think, first of all, I didn't like the approach. I didn't like the tone of the author. I thought it was a little superior and condescending, a little bit. I think that the subtitle of the book is Overcoming the Pain of Growing Up Gay in a Straight Man's World. And I don't think he really delved into that part of, growing up gay in a straight man's world. That has many different topics there, many different things to talk about. And I was really drawn to that subject matter, but really he just explores 2 things throughout the book: shame and rage. And even though I agree that shame and rage are 2 components of the experience of growing up as a gay male in a straight man's world in certain contexts, because this book is very much focused on your typical American white kind of environment, I believe. I think it's very, very specific in terms of its context, although in many other ways it is quite universal, because the experience of growing up different to the way that society expects you to be, that is universal regardless of where you are in the world or what your context is. But he really focuses on shame and rage, and those are really the 2 emotions that he explores in the book. And I think it's a very narrow focus for what could have been a really comprehensive perspective of an experience. So I thought it was very narrow-minded. I thought he was making a lot of generalizations, a lot of assumptions. He focuses exclusively on the pathological side of homosexuality. He doesn't talk about anything else. That's the way that I saw this book as, really focusing on the pathological side of things. And what I really didn't like was that it really felt like a very mediocre, simple self-help book. I started realizing, this feels like a self-help book. And then by the end, I was actually laughing a little bit because it is a self-help book. It absolutely is. It actually comes with a chart of things that you have to try and do to change your habits, your way of looking at things, so that you can keep track of your progress and your process. So I realized, it is a self-help book. I thought it would be something a little bit more comprehensive or in-depth or with more substance, but it really isn't. It's very superficial psychology. I would not even call this a psychology book. I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist and psychoanalyst myself, and I thought this was just very superficial. But I completely loved that this book exists. I think this book is a book that I will be recommending to a lot of people in life. I think this book can be an eye-opener for certain individuals who are going through some really hard things in their process of finding who they are and accepting, their identity and all of that. So I really loved the idea of this book, and I think this book will be beneficial to so many people, and I am so glad that this book is so popular and part of the mainstream, self-help books in a way. It's very, very accessible, and I think many people would be well to give it a read. Now, maybe because I am a psychologist, because I am a psychotherapist and a psychoanalyst, I thought this was just a little basic for me and for, my perspective on this issue, but I do think this is incredibly valid, and even though I gave it 2 stars, I completely support it, and I completely want to put this book in people's hands. So that's how I feel. That's a weird way to feel about a book, because I really didn't enjoy it, but I really applaud it and welcome it with open arms. With open arms. Anyway, those are books 15 through 19 that I have read so far in 2021. Please leave a comment down below if you have something you would like to share. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.